Can you see my face?
Now, yes.
I had my plans for the year this morning, that video, and now I'm busy cutting it out. So there's still chaos after this morning's show and tell. And I think I am going to make this a bit, no, it's not going to fit there. I'm going to make this one a bit longer and a bit bigger. I can always make it smaller, but it's not easy to make it bigger. So, and I also want to give it a round neck. I don't like, or maybe even a V. I don't like a straight neck. I'm also not going to make the halter neck. I hate a halter neck. I get a headache from that. I've decided not to make the skirt in the pattern because I don't particularly like pull-up skirts. So I'm just making a little flare skirt, and the back is a bit longer than the front. And I'm going to connect it to the bikini bottoms. And then lastly, I'm just going to cut some strips that I want to use to bind the top. Just to pull it all together, but also I think it's going to be nicer than to try and make straps. I've sandwiched the back between the lining and the front. I overlocked the side seams of this little skirt together. I'm also going to sandwich the back of the bottom between the gusset and the front part. This is where I am with the bathing costume. I'm making that one, but I'm giving it a little flare skirt. The bottoms, I need to sew the gusset down, but I wanted to wear the panties that I made out of this pattern first. What I found with the panties is that this part is too wide, so I will make that narrower. The top, I've sewed the side seams with the lining in. Biggest thing for swimwear elastic is make sure that it's like this one, that's pieces of elastic that's woven around. You sometimes get one that's much thicker, but that doesn't work so well. But this type actually works very well. Then you don't have to go and buy that really expensive underwear elastic. I don't know if it's cheaper in your country, but here it's a bit expensive. When I do costumes, I like to use floss. I just find it works better. And then also, I don't have it in navy, so I'm going to just change these two. So these are the two straight stitches on your overlocking, and it works quite well if you just replace the outside ones, because if it pulls on the seam, then that one will be showing, and that will be navy. For bathing costumes, you need to have a very stretchy stitch. So two of the stretchiest stitches on my machine is that one, the serpentine, and that one. I can't remember what you call it. That one is basically stitch, stitch, long stitch, 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 long stitch. I sandwiched the back between the front and the little gusset. And I'm now going to just zigzag this gusset down. And when you zigzag, remember, pull it a little bit, just to give it that bit more stretch. I'm going to zigzag the elastic on the edge. So I've got it on zigzag, and that one is on 4. That's my width of the zigzag. And my stitch length is on 2.5. Quick tip, how to get the elastic the same. Especially for swimwear, you want it the same on the butt part, because it looks really bad if it gapes on the one side and it pulls in too much on the other side. What you do is you take your elastic and you sew the first one down, then the second one you measure from the top to where the crotch starts, and that's where you put a pin. Then you measure from the crotch to where the crotch end. So from where it starts to where it ends, and you put a pin. And then you know when you start sewing it down, you can literally just spin it on all those places. And your elastic should basically pull in the same on both sides. I have now pinned it, and I can sew. And I can zigzag it on like I did it on that side. Another quick tip, I've sewed that down. Now you have this long piece up until where my pin is. The nice thing with the pattern is they always have a little mark on the butt, especially you need it, of where halfway is. So I have now sewed it down there, and I have pinned it over here, and now I'm just going to pull it and then put a pin on the halfway mark. And then it's much easier to have it equal on both sides. And when you sew, pull it straight and hold it like that, and then just sew on the edge until you get to the pin, and then you repeat it on the other side. Both of them are done. And I am going to do the side seams, sew the side seams together, and then I can put the top elastic, and then after that I can just fold everything over and sew it down, and then it's done. The bottom, I still have the rest to do. So what you would usually do, you will sew the one side together, and then you put your top elastic, and then you sew your other side. But I'm going to add the skirt to this bottom, so I need to sew both sides down, add the skirt, and only then put my final elastic. The sides are done and overlocked, and I'm going to fold this over now and sew it down. I'm going to sew it down with that stitch. It looks like that. I fitted it and it fits nicely. Legs are done. This part's much better than the panties because the elastic is quite wide, so I'd fold it over much more. And I put it on, and this was about 1 centimeter too high, so I cut it lower in the front. And now I'm going to add the skirt, and then it gets a navy blue band about that wide on top. The skirt is pinned in place, and I'm going to sew it with a plain zigzag stitch. So my zigzag goes down, my stitch length stay on 5, my zigzag width stay on 5, and my stitch length will be about 2.5. I want to show you the importance of the right stitch choice. So I started out with zigzag, and can you see how it pulled it out? And if you feel it, it's quite hard. On this it's not going to matter, but just keep it in mind when you do things. And then I moved over to the serpentine stitch, and look at the difference between zigzag, how it pulls it, and how the serpentine stitch just bring it all together without pulling it out. But what is good about that stitch is you actually have a lot of stretch to it. Where with the zigzag, you have a lot of stretch, but not as much. If I pull it more than that, this cotton will snap. I'm going to give it quite a wide band. And because the band's double, and it's a bit smaller than what it should be, it should keep my bands up. And if it doesn't, then I'll just put an elastic in afterwards. So I fitted it. It looks nice, and it fits nicely, but the back was too high, so I quickly unpicked it and I made it lower on the pants. The rest was fine. And now I'm going to sew the threads back into the seam, and then this is done, because I will not put a hem on this. I will leave it raw. I don't want any more bulk and anything that can hold water. I've got the threads pulled through the needle, and now I'm going to go in between the two pieces of material like that with the back of the needle, so you don't go through the material. And then I go in between the two rows of stitching, so it's almost forming like a little casing. And then I go as far as the cotton will let me, and now I pull it out, and then I just pull it straight like that, and then I take my needle and I go through one layer of fabric, and I thread it again with this, So it's now threaded and it's through one layer of fabric, and I just pull it through, and there we go. That's not going to go anywhere. And if you're afraid it might unpick, then just go through one layer of fabric again with your needle, thread it and pull it through again. So now it's through 2 times. You still have the stretch of your overlocking, but there's no threads hanging out. And then you just cut off the excess. These pants are done. And that's my little swimming skirts. There's a little flare skirt and there's the bottom. And what I also did is I made the back of the skirt longer than the front, so it don't pops up in the back. So I've decided to do the front part in the navy, because I do want to pick up the navy that's on the shorts or the skirt, and then the straps I will do in the polka dots. And how I do it, I use that stitch and I sew it down. Then I sew the elastic on, and then I fold the lycra over the elastic and sew it down. Sew down the elastic, I'm going to fold it like that. Fold this over and in, and then sew it down right around. It is pinned in place, and now I'm going to sew it like this. Okay, I've fitted it. It fits very nicely, but the straps are too long. So I'm just going to cross them over my back. I prefer cross straps anyway, because then they don't fall off your shoulders. And I want to just bind the bottom with this navy. So I actually need 2 hands, and I'm too lazy to get my tripod, but I'm just going to show you. I folded it over, bend it in place, and when I sew, I pull it a little bit, like that. So you can see it's normal, and that's when I pull it. And then I am using that stitch, because it gives you both the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch in one. And it's really stretchy for a costume.